just checking that I don't see them immediately dialed on. So I can message them.
Okay.
Apologies. If we want to, we can go straight into the second agenda item while we're waiting for them, if that's all right.
Okay, let's go. So regarding the AGM, the main point that we wanted to highlight that, as you may know, the AGM session were different that we anticipated. So different discussion that we proposed, notably on the FinTrack side. So the session couldn't be occurred that we anticipated due to the strategy discussion. So we propose right now to update you on the objectives of the proposal that we have. So notably that we had some new wording in the TSP that it's quite important to know. So globally, regarding the next step from the FinTrack, we don't have any changes. That we will continue to work in the same governance, with the same process, with the same, for the time being, same working groups. We will work on the 2026 work plan, and also this year. So with Marcus, and so with Marcus, we were happy to lead the working group, the track, and so at the end of this year we will we will stop our leader role in this FinTrack. So you will have the election to perform for two new leaders, and so I think Hanuman can share with you the timeline and the process, but it would be the same process as usual, and we are very happy to see any volunteers to lead the track. And also the information is regarding also the climate solution investment working group that I have led for 3 years. I'm happy to let the opportunity to another members to lead this working group. So happy to see any volunteer to continue this climate solution investment working group from next year. Potentially, Hanuma, do you have any point that you wanted to highlight on the governance or timeline for the FinTrack?
The main points in terms of the governance and timeline is really just to add that we will be moving into work planning in November and throughout December, and there will be an update towards the end of today's presentation in terms of some of the election timings as well, and opportunities to get involved in the leadership process. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Hanuma. And one important point that we wanted to discuss today, that it was planned in the last in the AGM, so a few weeks ago, it was to discuss on the CDR working group, notably on the paper, and so this is one important topic that we would like to discuss here right now. So I don't know if Ilke is connected.
Yes, I am.
Hi, Ilke.
Hi.
So can you please just present the document and all topics related to the working groups and the next step, please?
So, okay, super. Yes, thank you very much, and then Ranuma, well, everyone, hi. Yeah, this is the presentation we wanted to discuss during the AGM, but as Anne rightly said, this had been then pushed to today due to the more important discussions we had on AOA. You are all aware, right? So what is great, and I'm very delighted to share with you that the CDR discussion paper, its name is How to Get to the Net, which is basically kind of a play of words with a former paper we published in 2021, The Net in the Net. So what is the net? What is the negative? And now it's how to get to the net, right? So the publication is this week, so Thursday this week. And I will briefly let you know what is the content, and then we change to the discussions I briefly want to kick off. So the CDR discussion paper, How to Get to the Net, has various aspects. First of all, it's kind of like an, I would even say, knowledge building paper, where we again explain what is the difference between carbon reduction avoidance credits versus carbon removal credits, what qualifies for netting. Only carbon removal credits can qualify for netting. We explain the different carbon markets and the various instruments we propose to create an enabling environment to scale carbon removal. So first of all, and this is of course the basics of all, why is carbon removal needed? And you all know, independent of ambition level of decarbonization path, all scientific pathways indicate CDR, and even with the most ambitious parts or paths, a CDR of between 5 and 7 gigaton annually will be needed 2050. But for now, we see we are way behind these CDR needed at 2050, and therefore we need to build up these capacities already now. This is basically the message. And what is crucial, and this is of course what we highlight, most important is decarbonization, right? So this is how we start. Independent of this discussion, decarbonization is key, but still, independent how fast we decarbonize, we will need CDR. And as we see now, carbon emission reductions are way behind what is needed. We will need even more CDR, right? So this is what we explain in the paper, and as said, the instruments, so carbon market as one of the key, let's say, instruments to enable CDR and respective enabling policies. This is what we highlight. What is also important, what we kind of highlight at the very beginning already, of course, as our natural carbon sinks are so the highest source of sinks, of course, we need to preserve nature, which is not CDR. So preservation of nature won't qualify for CDR. But this is, in any case, what is needed. We don't want to live in a desert and have, a tech-based CDR. We don't want to, and it's also not realistic. Therefore, this is anyhow a prerequisite. We need to preserve our nature. This paper for us, it was really important, and I'm very happy that we are finally publishing to have this ahead of COP, to give it still a chance, a tiny chance at least, so that this will be brought to COP. And we already shared the paper with some, experts which are already which are at COP. So the content is already known for some of those persons negotiating, which is great. Yes, so let's move to the next page. Very briefly, the content. Thank you. As I said, I go through quite fast because most of it I already mentioned. Decarbonization stays, of course, top key priority. Still removing carbon will be important to achieve a net zero. As I said, even the most scientific pathways consider CDR. And we explain again the high relevance to differentiate between removal credits and reduction avoiding credits because, and we actually had this discussion now with the task force on net zero policies. Also there, it seems to be not really clear, or they are also not clear. So we had this discussion that reduction credits cannot qualify for netting, right? It's only compensation. Reduction avoidance credit only compensate. They cannot neutralize, as they do not remove carbon from the atmosphere. And this is what we again explain. What is removal? It's only carbon removed from the, so already released in the atmosphere to remove this carbon. If it's additional, an existing forest cannot be removable. It needs to be additional. And the third one is it needs to be durable, whatever durably means. This is what we also discuss, right? As I said, very first step, we need to preserve nature. Otherwise, it will be getting more and more difficult. We will need more and more removal if we continue destroying nature. Then what we also said, we need a mix of tech-based and nature-based removal. And as tech-based is not yet scaling, nature is even crucial, right? So this like for like, as Oxford Principle says, we are quite critical on that one. And then concerted actions are obviously needed. And these balanced policies, basically what we kind of we discuss a very long section on carbon markets. So a combination of voluntary and compliance carbon markets, so integrating voluntary CDR from voluntary carbon markets into compliance systems as proposed by the EU and now also UK. It makes completely sense to us, right? As regulated demand is a voluntary demand of CDR will not be sufficient. We need compliance demand. Could you please share back the slide? With this, this was on the CDR paper, so watch out. To the next slide, which is then, yeah, this is again the content. I guess we can skip that one because it will be quite repetitive. Yes, this is now something I just would like to discuss briefly or kick off a discussion today, and I hope we continue next year with the CDR working group and with all of you to discuss how to further build on this sentence. We haven't changed this sentence from the past protocols to now the next one we are going to release soon, I think in January, not sure. So this stays, which basically says no netting, as part of target achievement before 2030. So in case, asset owners already use carbon removal credits for netting, of course, anyhow, everyone will potentially report, but we suggest in any case gross reporting. So the emission reduced, the emissions, which the carbon footprint of the portfolio, and then the carbon removed as a separate number. So this stays no netting before 2030. But what we also discussed, and we could not finalize the discussion in the working group, this is in the gray box at the bottom. It's still not really clear what is a carbon removal which cannot be netted, but what might be a carbon removal which can be netted. So for example, a forest you are invested in generating carbon removal credits, either you sell it, then it's anyhow not anymore on your balance sheet, then it's sold, it's part of your return, or you keep the removal of the forest, and you could potentially net, or at least reports separate as a negative contribution. There it's quite clear in my view. There it's like a carbon credit you just keep. Either you buy it or you have it from your own forestry. But how come if you're invested in an investee company which and they do removal, and they would kind of net, can you consider these, right? Or there might be cases for some other, process company with respective process emissions, also with removal. Can you kind of net from this investee company from its carbon footprint, or would you need to consider it as a carbon removal credit as you would buy it, right? So the exact accounting, we were not sure in every single case. This is something we potentially, if we continue with the working group, we want to discuss next year. And then please, if you move to the next slide, this is another discussion we wanted to kick off in the AGM. This is now really a discussion on the residual emission. And this is also kind of related to SPTI, their new standards they are suggesting. So basically, you can have like two extremes, and you can think about something in between. How to manage, so what is the strategy for residual emissions? Either we start netting already before 2030, so different to the sentence which is currently in the TSP. So we kind of potentially wanted to open saying, no, as we all know, these capacities needs to build up. We want to promote removal, so therefore we should also open this up for target achievement, for AOA target achievement. So start basically removing carbon and netting already before 2030. Or you could say, and this is what kind of SBTI also discussed, it's not asset owners' responsibilities, it's the investee companies with their residual emissions. So it's their responsibility, and it should be also at their cost to net residual emissions. So we should do engagement and engaging with companies, investee companies for respective netting of residual emissions. But it's not on us. It should never, ever be on us to net residual emissions, our scope 3 emissions. But then I question, or we can argue and question, then it's not in line with our commitment, because the commitment is that we achieve net zero by 2050, right? And then you could think about also, guidance in between. And I would simply just, in case we have time, Ranuma, I don't know. Just throwing this at you, asking any views so far. Or any questions also to the paper. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ilke. I think we are quite limited in terms of timing, but Ranuma is you tell us if we have some additional minutes. But thank you for covering the topic. I think you perfectly summarize the objectives, the content of the paper, etc., and the key messages. So happy to have any. Thank you. Happy to have any question or comments for Ilke.
If you read this, does it resonate one or the other argument, or is it relevant for you, the discussion?
In my case, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is also like triggering the work program, right? 2026. You could also think about, in between. We are not finally responsible, sure, but we have the commitment. And yeah, so if there is no question or anyone who wants to come in for this discussion, but if you are still interested, I kindly invite you to join the working group next year and discuss with us how to proceed.
Yeah, excellent. And
thank you.
And again, thank you a lot Ilke and the working group for their this amazing work on the paper, etc. So thanks a lot, and for all members, feel free to contact Ilke or Ranuma on any question, comments, or if you want to join the working group. Ranuma.
I was just going to ask a question to Elke, and I know you sort of touched upon it in the earlier presentation regarding the paper, but there was a big push to just certainly on your side and with us supporting you to make sure that we try to get this paper out ahead of COP30. I wondered if you just want to give a bit of commentary on why that was particularly important for this paper, Elke.
Why this was important? Yeah. We have, so the main, I mean, the name or headline of the paper is How to Get to the Net. And it's clear that we need the carbon markets to achieve kind of, regulate, demand for CDR, right? Therefore, carbon markets are needed. So who is responsible for kind of framing this carbon market? I mean, we have the voluntary carbon market, but it's voluntary demand, which is not really stable. So we are basically asking for compliant demand, so regulated demand, which will really help to scale CDR. And therefore, we need policymakers, right? And this is exactly at COP, policymakers meet and negotiate. And we hope that the suggestions we make how to possibly scale the CDR market will be brought to the responsible persons. As I said, it's quite late now. I'm not sure if it finds its way. But what is really good, we shared this paper in advance with some responsible persons that are who are connected to negotiations, and therefore, and also with the task force on zero policies. So we very much hope that some of our suggestions are kind of listened to. And, I mean, of course, we continue. I mean, the discussion will continue, and we hope this paper kind of is read and not only read, but really, understood why we believe compliant markets are needed. We have a bit, one last comment with Article 6. You find only like one sentence. You might wonder. Our view was Article 6 is still very weak and for now not really helpful, or not, how do you say, for the way how it's framed, it's potentially not, so the way how Article 6 is currently framed and is potentially not sufficient to really massively scale CDR. Therefore, we believe compliance carbon markets will be needed to integrate CDR in the compliance market. Thank you. This was long, sorry.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Okay. And we have a bit of a handover between track leads. Anne was only able to join the first half of today's call, and Marcus will be joining the second half. But while we do that handover, we now have Richard and Josh who are joining us. So thank you, Richard and Josh, for dialing in, and apologies for some confusion on the dial-in details. I think I saw them up on my screen a second ago. There we go. So welcome. I want to hand over the floor to both of you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to join you. My apologies on behalf of Ed Webber, our Deputy Director, who last minute was called into a meeting last minute across Whitehall COP meeting. I can imagine it's that time of year for us all. We have been asked to give you a bit of an update as to where we've got to on the Global Clean Power Alliance. My name's Josh Tebber. I'm the team leader in the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero for the GCPA Finance Mission, among other things. And Richard Abel, also on the line, is a director at the Green Finance Institute, who is our colleague who's been steering us through all of the global work track of our GCPA. Richard, please feel free to add or amend to your introduction.
Very briefly, I've been with the Green Finance Institute for a few months, and we've been working with the World Bank team to deliver the GCPA Finance Mission Global Work Stream, as Josh has said. Prior to joining the GFI, I was in Macquarie Asset Management, so investing laterally, particularly in renewable energy in emerging markets. Thank you.
Super, thank you. We'll give a quick update. I know we can give the sort of the elevator version of this, the normal version, the extended edition with director cut. We'll head for something in the middle today, given the time. But it's been almost a year now since the GCPA Finance Mission was launched by, gosh, I need to get slides with fewer words on. Been launched by, I'm going to just put it back. It's been launched by the Prime Minister and the Brazilian President Lula at the G20 last year. The context, of course, was the tripling and doubling global stocktake goals. But other than that, the GCPA and the finance mission specifically as to what it would do, we've spent some time determining how it could add value in a really busy international landscape. Where we've essentially landed is to go after the part of the problem which relates specifically to accessing international private finance. And so the GCPA Finance Mission wants to partner with countries to support them in accessing international private finance for their clean energy transitions. It's, in effect, that divides into sort of 3 areas where we are working with partner countries to determine that they've got the right people, the right plans, and the right projects for this space. On the people side of things, this has been influenced quite heavily by our co-partner, Brazil, who are rightly very proud of all the work that they've done, not least with the GFI, on their investment platform. And they are, as you know, making a big play for country platforms or equivalent structures at COP30. We're not necessarily here to say country platforms are the answer to your problem or not, but it's clear that there's a huge amount of interest for them in countries, and anyone, almost anyone, can set them up. That's easy enough to do. The question is whether or not they're going to be fit for purpose, whether or not they've got the right people in there with the right expertise, with the access to the right tools, with the access to the right international network of people to deliver on the international private finance side of that work. So as far as capability building is concerned, that's one area that we'll be working with partner countries. The plans, which is basically the energy investment planning. We've seen lots of high-level strategy goals from countries. We've seen some more in-depth work, for example, the M300 Clean Energy Compacts, which have been published in partnership with the World Bank, also a partner of ours on the global work stream. But there's a difference between having a strategy document that says by 2050 we want to be here and having an investment plan. And so it's about helping countries to translate those plans into investment plans and what that means specifically. The final part of the work relates to projects. Understandably, great that you've got a plan. What needs to come from it is that pipeline of projects. We've been speaking to one of our members, for example. We spoke to the Vice Minister of that country where they said we've got 50 projects in the clean energy space. We have only 2 of them have the thought through financial instruments underneath them. Otherwise, the structuring of the other 48, that's what we need help on. So in that context, we'll be looking to identify 1 or 2 priority projects from the partner countries we're working with to look at what accelerating them through that, admittedly, multi-year processes for project preparation. Important to mention at this stage that the GCPA Finance Mission's mandate is for a time-bound 2-year period. This built-in moratorium was on the basis that it shouldn't continue, a bit like sending more satellites up into space. It shouldn't continue to sort of clutter the international space unnecessarily. So it's that 2-year window where we're looking to make very targeted interventions that leave our partner countries materially better off for having worked with us than at the beginning of that time. So having divided that 3 ways into plans, people, plans, and projects, I'm going to intersect it with the other 3 ways, which is essentially the global work stream, the country level, and the project level. I'll hand over to Richard to talk about the global level, but just to put that in context, we currently have 7 EMDE members of the GCPA Finance Mission. which are Barbados, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Mozambique, Morocco, and Tanzania. We're also working very closely with the African Union. Those are the countries that signed up to the GCPA and finance mission originally last November. And so whilst we're doing some in-depth country work with those 7, potentially some more, depending on how we augment that, where we'll be really having in-depth conversations with people in countries and a whole collection of actors who can help in those countries. There is something about contributing to the more global conversation and how we contextualize country work in a global conversation. And so that's why we have this complementary tracts of the global work led by GFI and the World Bank, plus the country work that we're pursuing in parallel. On that note, and forgive the sort of barrage of information you're getting, I promise we'll be quick enough that you can ask lots of questions at the end. But Richard, over to you.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so look, very briefly, what we're publishing at COP is the use of what we call the green print in the Green Finance Institute, which looks in quite a practical way at what you need to interest private developers and institutional investors into the renewable energy space in these markets. So we talk about some of the the things that are familiar to you around the importance of the enabling environment and the sort of broader regulatory financial environment, which is, asset owners, you understand very well. That's both for international capital, as Josh said, but also we do, look at what can help foster domestic markets, such as creation of dedicated pure play renewable yield cos in sub-Saharan Africa, and as we see in India and some of the larger markets where there is local institutional capital that is potentially, a potential investor in this space. So building up that private finance ecosystem, as well as the project pipeline, growing through the different stages of high quality energy investment planning along the cycle of the green print, from national goals and plans, proper energy and grid planning, good project preparation and identification of what project finance is needed, through to creating asset classes of secondary investment into renewable energy projects. That's what we're trying to put forward, and we'll publish that, and then we'll look forward to exemplifying it at a country level and regional level in real things that sort of move the process forward a bit, and actually does make a bit of a practical difference to market development, drawing on our World Bank experience of energy and grid planning and a lot of experience we've got in GFI as investors and asset managers in this space. I'll stop there. I'm sorry it's a bit noisy in the background here. I'm actually on the way to Angola to have meetings with the African Union and some of the countries that are interested in working with us over the next couple of years to try and put some flesh in the bones of these country plans. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. So that speaks to the global work. That's the first piece of work that we've got for our COP30 as a COP30 deliverable. This potentially is the first of several pieces of work that then might subsequently go into thematic detail. For example, it might be a particular sector which is of real interest to our members, grids, infrastructure. How do you get private finance specifically into that part of your clean energy, for your clean energy transition? For the time being, this is what we're going to be launching at COP and sort of showcasing that. One thing that the GCPA Finance Mission has been determined to do is to learn the lessons of recent initiatives and alliances, including many that we've been involved in ourselves. And so South-South learning is a really strong dimension of this work. The Global Roadmap really showcases country Global South leadership, where this has, in particular instances, been done quite well. And similarly, one of the things the Finance Mission will be looking to do is to position itself as an enabler of Global South ambition. So in addition to the global work that we've got, we're going to be launching or have ready to publish some country level work plans, which basically say, in the context of that global picture of good, what does that mean in the country context? Where are they in their journey on getting the right people, plans and projects for this work? And that will be ready by COP30 as well. And we're also exploring something around how the GCPA finance mission can best facilitate South-South learning. There's a lot of stuff already happening in this space, not least by Brazil, including the potential launch of a country platform knowledge hub. We're just waiting to find out which is the best place for us to be to support that work. There's not this is what we've already talked through. This is as far as the target deliverables that we've got with the global country and South-South learning. I think the project stuff's going to come a little later. This is exactly the same sort of information in a slightly different format. And then finally, you can see in this slide, the ones on the left there, highlighted in bold, are the current members, including the non-bolded countries who are our global north countries. I think we have aspirations for this list to modestly grow. Because we've had a number of global north countries approach us to ask to support this work. And by support, I mean materially aligning some of the work they might be providing bilaterally in this space or through multilateral efforts to do those things. And we're mindful as well that the group of countries that we've got are very well representative of South and Central America and Africa, but there isn't yet that same story that we can tell about our engagement in the Asia Pacific region. We've got some thoughts and potentially some plans. We'll see what we're ready to announce by COP, but just so you're aware. So yeah, I mean, having heard all of this, just to be crystal clear and sort of end with almost a question back to all of you, is that the material support offer that the finance mission is looking to mobilize is essentially a combination of many things. So if a country basically says, we've just launched a new country platform, we announced it at COP30, we've got GCF readiness programming support to do so, fantastic, with some philanthropic stuff to do early stages, great. In terms of building capability in that, do they want people training in international private finance who are staffing up their teams? Do they want experts who are embedded in their teams? Do they want to build longer term institutional capacity to work with green finance? It might be a combination of all of those three things. So the finance mission has built a network of colleagues and contacts, some of whom are based in the City of London and have experience in this space, who can provide support in different ways, depending on what the country is after. So our hope is that we can get a strong articulation of demand from our partner countries, and the finance mission can stitch together in a more coherent kind of programmatic way these different offers of support. So we can look to build capability, deliver something material in the energy investment planning space, which ultimately delivers one or two projects which are using the political kind of convening power of the GCPA finance mission. We can really push them forward. I'd be really interested to hear your reflections, given where you are placed in all of this, with the expertise that you have, the experience that you've had of years of trying to do this, and I'm sure with success, where you see that sort of intersection with the work that we're doing, particularly if there's something you think you could support us with, that would be awesome. Or if there are lessons learned that you would sort of provide to us as a cautionary tale as we embark on this work, would be very interested to hear. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Josh and Richard. Any questions or comments?
Hiya, I'm Charlie Beard from Pension Insurance Corporation, so we're a UK bulk annuity writer. I guess my main comment here is it's just kind of a challenge of risk appetite for like kind of our organization, which is probably what would stop us really kind of closely engaging in this, just like our view on how likely we are to fund the projects in the medium to long term. I don't know if that's common across other asset owners, but I suspect for like big insurance companies like ourselves, that may be a common picture, but keen to hear kind of others' views on that.
So can I just, thanks, Charlie. Can I just clarify if I understood that reflection, that your the extent to which you'd be ready or wanting to engage with this would depend to some or a large extent on the likelihood of you ultimately investing in projects in these geographies. Is that correct?
Yeah, and taking a view that that is quite a low likelihood outcome.
Is it? I recognise that the diversity of members that we've got, ranging from sort of Mozambique to Barbados, Brazil, Morocco, they all offer very potentially quite different investment environments. So, are there particular geographies where you think you are more active, or those where you're not?
There definitely are, and I think there's probably a big difference between some of those names you mentioned. But I think we have done some investments in some of those countries. Yeah, so I'm probably using a bit of a broad brush there on the members that you've got, and thinking more kind of the more emerging market countries. But yeah, like Brazil, for example, that seems like a much less risky proposition at this stage. Yeah.
Some reflection that I think Richard might as well, but please leave the floor open for others to add if they have any reflections or questions.
Maybe I'll just, so I think, Charlie, is you're right to look at this. There's quite it's quite a bit of differentiation. Some of the sort of least developed markets, it's more of a specialist play from, from in terms of asset ownership, partly because the challenge is that aside from sort of jurisdictional issues, there's just not a lot to go after, right? So if you're going to put the effort into sort of getting to know the jurisdiction and get comfortable with it, if they're at the early stages of sort of putting programs or projects together, there's a bit less scope to play. There's some of the local like asset owners in South Africa there'll be some coverage there, even in some of those earlier stage jurisdictions, particularly if they've got some hard currency PPAs available. But for some others though, like Brazil and Morocco, you've got quite mature programs. The technologies are well understood now, and there's a broader range of things to go after, and a broader range of people who are looking at the markets actively, both developers and asset owners, I think. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard. And just to add to that, so in asking anyone to engage with the finance mission, it's certainly not an all or nothing proposition as far as what we're asking people to do. And I think one of the things we're just at the cusp, sur le point, as the French might say, of resolving is to decide how we're going to work more closely with the Energy Transition Council, which was initially a UK led energy alliance launched at COP26, which is very, very active in Southeast Asia and South Asia. And I think I can say confidently that we're looking to work a lot more closely with the ETC next year than we've done this year. And that might bring more countries, particularly those you're interested in, Charlie, into scope as well.
Great.
I mean, maybe I'll just finish by saying I'm going to be at COP30 at Belém for the first week. It'd be great to see people around. We're planning a joint event with the Brazilians at the UK Pavilion on the 15th, Saturday the 15th, which will be the main event at which we'll be launching our global roadmap, celebrating the leadership of our members and the work plans we've agreed, and then showcasing parts of the offer that the finance mission is looking to mobilise, please do feel free to come along. I appreciate not as many people are maybe travelling to blame. I don't blame you, although my yellow fever vaccination was very gentle. It would be lovely to see you there. I know there's a number of other events, I think, where you'll be hearing more about the finance mission over the course of the week. But yeah, happy to join up with you there or separately. Thanks.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks, Richard. We might move on to our next agenda item, but Josh, Richard, would you be happy with us sharing your contact details as well in case there are any of our members who want to follow up with you afterwards?
By all means.
Yeah, certainly. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you both. Thanks again.
Take care, everyone.
Bye. We apologies from Marcus. I think he's in transit and is struggling to join the call. But we're nearly at time, so just in the interest of moving things along, we will actually go straight into some discussion on COP30. And for that, I might hand over to David to speak to some of the work happening on that.
Yeah, thanks. And I know we have a couple other agenda points to go through, so I'm going to go quite fast with apologies, but with COP just upon us, I did want to update briefly on the informal working group that we've been leading jointly between the FinTrack and the policy track. We've had a really positive stakeholder engagement, both on the governmental, multilateral, and sort of global initiatives level. We're currently building a COP30 pack that might be quite helpful for those of you who might be attending COP, or if you just want to hear a little bit more about the conference and what we plan to do there, and also some quite extensive events. I'm going to just go back to that in a minute with some opportunities to join in Brazil, whether it's in Sao Paulo or Belém. But I did want to maybe just give a quick heads up of what are the sort of 3 key messages that we will be landing at COP in various engagements. Obviously, there's a bit of sensitivity in the current NZAOA context, so we're making sure that we're developing the right messaging that can be shared in different type of settings, whether it's bilateral, closed setting, or open setting, but we're sort of crystallizing around 3 sort of main area. The first, quite importantly, is to try to emphasize the trend and not only the current cycle, particularly around reinforcing a positive mood music at COP, particularly regarding the sort of willing contribution that the financial sector continues to want to do to the objectives of the Paris Agreement. We will also be particularly in bilateral, and I don't know if Josh and other DESNES colleagues are still here, but obviously one of the things that we're quite interested in is to land this message around the sort of hurdles that continue to inhibit sort of investor climate action, particularly on the policy environment and sort of the pace of real world decarbonization, and also just expressing support as is appropriate given the context for the continuation of dialogue and delivery on key processes. Obviously, one of these is the Sharm el-Sheikh dialogue on 2.1c on aligning climate financial flows with the objectives of the Paris Agreement. Obviously, there's the Sharm el-Sheikh dialogue that we all heard a bit more about at the AGM, but there's obviously the broader objectives around aligning financial flows. So that's just one example of the type of encouraging yet slightly critical support that the sort of NZAOA is trying to adopt as an angle. Maybe you can take me to the next slide, Ranuma, just very briefly. And this is just a very quick overview of some of the events. So I think we've been in touch with most of you who are planning to be in Brazil, whether at PRI in person, some of the other events such as Bloomberg Green or the Climate Implementation Summit, and then at COP. But if we haven't been in touch yet, please do drop us a note. We do have obviously opportunities for meetings, both government meetings with other NZAOA members. We'll be doing a roundtable roundtable at COP itself. And then obviously there is also within PRI in person, a few of you will be attending that. We will also be organizing an NZAOA event on the 6th of November during breakfast, which will be around the enablers for asset owner climate action. So if you'd like to attend that and you haven't yet registered, I will put the link in the chat. And also one project that will be very familiar to many participants in the FinTrack is Scaled. So like Yes and Zurich will be organizing a breakfast roundtable to give an update on how that process is going. So there's some contact details on here. And of course, if you would like to hear more about any of this engagement or receive the COP briefing pack, so please do get in touch.
Thanks, David. And thanks for dropping that link in the chat. And again, just in the interest of time, I want to touch very quickly on upcoming track elections and other openings. As Anne mentioned at the top of the call, we have two openings for track leads in the FinTrack. So the calls for nominations will open in November. And this is just a flag to say, if you're interested in learning a bit more about the role and speaking to the track leads or secretariat about what that involves, please feel free to reach out to us. I'm really keen to see some new members getting involved with the leadership of the FinTrack. And we also have another announcement, which is we have an opening as well for a working group lead within the FinTrack. So Brendan Abedy, who leads the Climate Solutions Investment Platform Working Group with CREO, will be stepping down as well. So if anyone's interested in learning more about that opportunity, then please do get in touch with us. I think David's probably best placed on that one in particular. So yeah, do let us know, and looking forward to working with you as we see new leadership coming into the track and move into next year's work plan as well. So that brings us to a formal close of today's agenda, just 1 minute shy of stopping time. So we'll say thank you to everyone who was able to join today, and we will see you again in a few weeks' time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.